Imagine buying a new car with the hood bolted down. You can't pop it open to look at the engine. To see inside, you'd have to be a mechanic. Imagine the kinds of materials a car company might be tempted to use if their customers couldn't see inside the engine compartment. Would they go so far as to leave out important parts if they thought they could get away with it? As unlikely as it sounds, this scenario is happening right now, only it's not in the automotive industry. It's happening to people who sew.
I don't expect to spend several $100s on a machine that was a piece of junk. Even now when I talk about it, I'm getting aggravated and upset. If this machine had been a real life person, or if somebody would have been there from that company, I would have picked this machine up and tossed it right at him.
Americans love to sew. It's estimated more than 35 million of us have a sewing machine at home. Every year we spend more than $8 billion on sewing machines, accessories, and supplies. That's more than we spend on purchasing DVDs, more than we spend on cruises, and more than we spend on department store makeup, skincare, and fragrances. Studies show sewing is a soothing activity. It's medically proven to reduce stress. Many people report the primary reason they sew is for fun.
I think it's coming up. Okay.
But it really stops being fun when you realize you've been ripped off and paid several $100s for what's essentially a toy.
Bob Juniman has been repairing sewing machines for 30 years. At his store here in a suburb of Denver, he services all the major brands.
See, what you have to understand is that a sewing machine is a very precise instrument, and it's timed. And if the needle comes down in the wrong place, if the relationship to the hook isn't quite right, the machine jams, it breaks a needle, it does damage to the hook. These aren't things that relieve stress.
The closer Juniman looked, the more he noticed a disturbing trend in the way certain machines were being manufactured.
They started using less metal in certain parts. You could measure with a caliper and see it getting thinner and thinner. You know, it's just a lack of respect for the consumer, is how it seems to me.
Then Juniman saw something that really made him mad.
What really ticked me off is when I opened up this one particular brand of machine and I found there was actually no frame inside of it. It's just plastic covers with parts screwed in. It was like a toy.
Why does a sewing machine need a frame?
Because at the high rate of speed that needles and hooks go to make stitches, if the frame is not substantial, things flex and you get bad performance. You might even have a needle smack directly into a hook. I mean, that could be dangerous. Needles can become projectiles. I actually pulled a needle out of my forehead once on the bench because two pieces came together at a high rate of speed. This is exactly what happens when you don't have a metal frame. As you notice, there's a lot of movement in places where there should be none. And if the frame doesn't constrict the machine so that that can be the case, then the machine's kind of free to just flex as it sees fit. So the net result would be hooks and needles colliding, which could be dangerous, or lots of skip stitches because the needle and the hook are too far apart.
Sewer Sandy Thompson learned firsthand what it was like to use one of these machines.
It was the night before I was to have these angel costumes done for a church play that was going on. The following evening was dress rehearsal. It was about 7 o'clock at night and my machine died. It literally died. So I went to one of these big box discount stores and bought what I thought was a pretty decent machine for a couple of $100s. And I got it home, and within a half an hour, the straight stitch was not working. The zigzag was making some weird sound. I don't know what it was. And so the next morning I took it into the repairman and see if he could repair it, and he said there was nothing he could do about it.
So you paid several $100s for what was basically a throwaway machine?
Oh, I was furious. Up to 3 o'clock in the morning fighting with that thing, I was livid.
Juniman says his service business has seen a dramatic increase in these poorly made machines. So many, in fact, he began to take pictures when they came in.
You know, the part that really ticks me off is the company that makes these kinds of sewing machines, they know how to make a sewing machine. They know how they should be constructed. I guess the assumption is that the people who buy machines will never look inside and see how they're made or what they're missing, because they're missing parts, they're missing pieces.
So what should you see if you open up a quality sewing machine?
You should see a metal frame inside. You should see something that the covers are attached to rather than just being screwed together themselves like a clamshell.
So based on your experiences, is there a sewing machine you would recommend?
You want me to say that on camera?
Sure.
Well, Janome, when I worked at a multi-line dealer, they were the machines with the least problems by far. So, you know, I'll fix any brand of machine, but I only sell Janome. if I was to apply the same forces to this machine that I applied to the other one, this is what it should look like. There should be barely any perceivable motion.
We searched online for several of the machines you say were poorly made, but we found they were given high ratings, even by some well-known consumer publications.
Well, what it seems to me when I read them is that there aren't any techs involved. There aren't people who really understand the machinery well enough to give a qualified answer as to how well the machine works. It's as though they place more emphasis on gimmicks that the machines have built into them than whether the tools actually work.
So when someone's buying a machine, how can they make sure they don't get ripped off?
Try to make sure the machine has an interior metal frame. Another good idea as far as getting information is to go online, go to chat rooms, find out what people are saying about the machines that they've purchased. It's rare to find anything but rave reviews on Janome machines. Everybody loves them. They work.
In the end, it all seems to come down to the age-old principle. A structure is only as solid as the foundation it's built on. And from the sound of things, some of these sewing machines have almost no foundation at all. If your expectation is for a fun, stress-free sewing experience, do your research and choose a brand you can really trust, from the inside out. For Consumer Watch, I'm Kathy Marshall.